Okay, guys, how are you doing out there? Week. Oh my God. Okay, it's right. Well, we're coming up to crunch time. And, if you actually, kind of watch any influencers out there, then you will probably have heard that things are about to get very uncomfortable for some people. And, sometimes I think people think that my life has always been rosy. No, it hasn't. On the contrary, I, went into the fire, was forced into the fire. And actually, on the last one, I said, nobody can push you into the fire. It has to be, it has to come from within. But the truth is that the universe, if you aren't willingly going into the fire, the universe will force you into the fire. It will push you into the fire because, we each have to go. We have to go. Humanity doesn't upgrade. And yes, it may well be, 2,000 years away before we start to upgrade. But I actually don't think it's going to be that long. It's been 2,000 years of the Piscean age. Okay, so remember, people might have thought, oh, what is she talking about? Pisces is all like collective. We've just come through the Piscean age, guys. Was that conscious or was that deeply, deeply unconscious? Most of the last of the 2,000 years, okay? It was about slavery. It was about, power over. It was about feeding the 1%, okay? And it was deeply, deeply unconscious. And it was all about it was all about ego, okay, so, and feeding the ego. And worse than that, actually, it was very dark, very demonic, and very narcissistic. And it was all about feeding these demons and what has come to be known as narcissistic supply, okay? And so narcissists will very much try and they feed on energy, basically, and essentially they feed on fear, okay? And so they like to make you scared, they like to make you feel uncomfortable, because that is essentially how they feel, okay? And they want, they feel power over when they're getting the people around them to feel scared, and that's our whole culture, basically, okay? But, I actually wanted to come on here today because, part of this sort of feeling of being uncomfortable, and, a teacher said it to me it was about 10 years ago. It was actually 9 years ago. It will be 9 years ago, coming up the beginning, of November. So sort of in about a week's time, it will be about 9 years ago when my life got very, very uncomfortable, okay? And, luckily I had just been to a teacher who said, we need to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. And this is the thing, is that when you are forced into the fire, whether you choose to go there or, you're pushed by the universe, it's going to get uncomfortable because that is the nature of fear. And that is the nature of what we've pushed down and what we're distracting from, what we're trying to avoid feeling. And people will use, really, again, it's all about the 4 F's. It's Facebook, friends, phone, and I can't remember the other one, but there is one. Food, that's it. Food, feeding. It's not just about food, but it's the feed response. So it's shopping, it's hoarding, it's consuming on all levels. It's not just food, it's substances. It's an extreme stress response, okay? And it's based on addictions. And so, we don't necessarily even have to be addicted to a physical substance, what we would consider an addiction, okay? But, I've come to realize that, well, I've got a few addictions, and actually, in this Libra season, I found myself kind of going down a few. It's very interesting, I've thought, because it's all about balance. Yeah, I found myself kind of going slightly sort of into my addictions a little bit. And, that was kind of one of the couple of things, loads of things again that I wanted to kind of talk about. But let me just start with this, okay, which is to say, we are moving into this very uncomfortable time. And it's, like I said on the last one, it's all about humility. It's all about humbling yourself, okay? And so I'm going to be the one to start, okay? Yeah, I started, like I said, 10 years ago, and I haven't got a problem at all with being humble. I am constantly being humbled and humbling myself. In fact, I continuously understand people. I always defer, even though I know that I know, right? I just defer because it's just easier that way. And I don't like getting into conflicts with people particularly. But I will approach a subject if I have to, okay? Because I also don't do the stiff upper lip thing very well. And I don't like to do it because I actually believe that relationships go deeper when there is a little bit of conflict, okay? And so, I know a lot of people who just avoid conflict at all costs. And so they stick to terribly superficial relationships and friendships and things like that. And I just see that as the ultimate distraction, okay, of just keeping people in this kind of superficial bubble. Okay, so, but I'm going to start by being a little bit humble and bringing up a few of the things that I've said on here that I've then, had to kind of eat my words a little bit when I've realized sort of the truth of the situation. And the first one is about doctors and nurses. Now, I've always said this it's not about doctors and nurses. That's the number one thing I want to make super, super clear, okay? But what I do mean is the NHS and pharmaceutical, big pharma, basically. And, that is to say, right, number one, doctors and nurses themselves and all the people who, paramedics and, the first responders and, anyone who works for emergency services, okay, they are incredible, right? Care workers, caregivers, all of the people who work under big pharma, okay, are incredible people. They just want to help. They just want to serve. They are there for humanity, okay? And it is beautiful and it is incredible. And when you are on the receiving end of that, it helps people to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel heard, and even though they really barely have any time at all, they make time and they give you time, and they want people to be held, kind of thing, and they do that and they do it well, okay? So I'm going to humble myself and say yes, absolutely they do that. And the number one area where they are incredible, okay, is when it comes to accidents and emergency. Because honestly, in some ways, the work that I do and the work that we do here in the alternative kind of realm, I mean, yes, to a certain extent, we can deal with some emergencies. There are plants out there that can heal broken bones and that kind of thing, can stop a person hemorrhaging. It's all available. It's all out there, but but usually and often we can't necessarily get there quickly enough, okay? And so, I just want to do shout out to those people and just say yes, okay? You are seen, you are heard, you are incredible, okay? And I am not going to be I don't want to be seen as, just always the person who puts them down, because the people themselves are incredible and the work that they do is, far and beyond anything that I ever do, honestly. But they do have their limitations. And when it comes to disease and when it comes to actually keeping people healthy, there are other methods, and alternative therapies and alternative remedies are absolutely essential. Okay, but because that we are living in a nanny state, okay, people do just want to take a pill. They just want to take a pill. They've got symptoms and all they want to do, whether that's homeopathy, or big pharma, okay, is they just want to take a pill and they want everything to be okay. But the essence really of not being comfortable and being in a state of dis-ease, so not at ease, okay, is that there is always an underlying emotional or mental issue, okay? Probably we've spoken a little bit about it. I certainly talk about it on my course, which is to say that any state of dis-ease starts as a felt sense, okay? That's what I mean by it starts when we're very young, before we even have language. And so it feels, life threatening, basically. It feels like a life or death situation often, when, it might just be something like being abandoned, might be being rejected, something like that, by a partner or something like that. And then we're going to go into extreme states of, feelings of loss, okay? And we might even be able to intellectualize, it wasn't working, I didn't like this, that, and the other, but we still feel betrayed, we feel abandoned, and it goes super fucking deep. And we can actually feel it in our physical body. So that's what I always say. First step is just stop and drop, okay? And get really, really present with your feeling and just kind of go, oh, where is it? Right, to begin with, where is it in my body that I'm feeling the resistance? I'm feeling the compression or the contraction. I'm feeling the squeeze, okay? This is where I've cut off the blood supply, I've cut off the oxygen, I've cut off the nutrients, I've cut off the life force to that part of my body, okay? And, and so, that we can just get so much information. And when we illuminate that information, that is the healing process. Now, that can be difficult for people to understand because it's not a pill that we're taking, okay? But what has actually happened is we've compressed it to such an extent that it's become a shadow. It's become very, very dark, particularly then if it's around the heart and we do something like smoking. We're taking in a very dark substance, or any carbon, even when we're just, sitting around a campfire, or even if we're just, living and, working and breathing and in a city, okay, we're taking in carbon. And so we've got the initial felt sense, which is creating compression, and then we start to and we get actually addicted to then the carbon, okay? And so we can go down all sorts of different ways with the carbon, okay? But then my next sort of humbling is to talk to you a little bit more about this idea of love, okay? I did kind of think more on this idea of love and this idea of fear, okay? And I was sort of thinking about it, and I saw one influencer talk about how in Greece they actually have 3 words for love. Now, I personally wouldn't call the first one, which she mentioned, was eros. Okay, I should have looked up the other 2, but I didn't. So eros is sort of sexual love, okay? I personally I don't really call that love. I don't think that is love. That is sex, it is obsession, it is lust, it is connection, it is communication, it is, a really powerful, potent, and, an extreme form of love that honestly, I mean, guys, keeps coming into my mind to say this to you, you know, but I don't want people to feel sorry for me, because I've been through the fire, I've come out the other side, and you know, now I'm living my best life in some ways, and it's only going to get better. Okay, but so I really don't want people to feel sorry for me. But the truth is, within that 10 years, I have been I am an underliked, underloved, an underfucked woman. Okay, and for that reason, then I think I do pretty fucking well. I think I do really, really well. Okay, I know I do really well, and I hold it myself. Okay, I contain it. I was going to say I hold it down, but I actually don't. I let it out. Okay, I go there. I go deep into what I'm feeling, and I express. Okay, and I have done, and I've been doing that for a very long time, for about 10 years. And so Eros is something that I'm really deeply missing in my life. I'm deeply missing it, okay? And I can't just have it with anyone. Absolutely not. I mean, another thing that I was sort of thinking to say on this is that, you know, I was kind of rejected, you know, and where somebody else in my life was sort of put on this pedestal, because they, got to get the pronouns right, they were getting sexual advances and accepting them, okay? And then somebody else was like, you know, oh, they must be desirable. No, and I am not attracted to people who do that, okay? Those persons. You know, that's the one thing I have had plenty of. You know, I've had plenty of sexual advances, okay? And I'm not interested. I am not interested with having sex with anyone anymore, okay? I've been there, done it, and it just gets you into trouble, ultimately. It just gets you attached to somebody who isn't, you know, a person, basically, who isn't able, ready, willing, and able, or able to do the work, okay? And that's the only thing I'm interested in. I'm interested in people who have gone there, who have been there, maybe who are even there, but they aren't in a state of it's your fault and a projection, okay, where they just want to blame someone and they just want to play mind games with you, you know, by getting other people involved and by, you know, just creating this whirlwind drama. That's what I mean about narcissists. It's, you know, they're not happy unless there's a huge, massive drama, because there's, you know, sometimes, quite often, there's very little else going on in their lives, okay? Because, you know, they actually think, and it's in my generation, and I've come to know it's going to be changing every year, but I've come to recognize that it's really around 45 now, and somewhere between 45 and 47, it's probably about 50-50. So for about 2 or 3 years, men and women were about 50-50. Above 47, it's much more the men, okay? And under 45, then it's much more the women, okay, who are narcissistic and who demand attention, and they demand for their needs to be met. And so, you know, they haven't actually, they're not able to meet their own needs. It's about desperation and, you know, well, yeah, exactly. It's about desperation. And so I often refer to younger women under 45, I actually sort of see them as more like Muslim men, okay? And they're very heavy on the messaging, and they want to get into people's, you know, slip themselves into people's inboxes and that kind of thing. It's a little bit like a dick, okay? And like I say, a sick dick, okay? One that is just desperate. It just wants to have a wank on someone, kind of thing. And that to me is just like, ugh. I mean, you know, I've had to experience people doing that with each other, and it literally makes me want to vomit. I mean, literally, I have been just like, oh God, just please don't even, I don't want to hear anything more about it. It's so sick. There is nothing relating to love in that connection. It is all about ego, and it literally makes me feel like vomiting, okay? So I don't even like to be around it. I don't even want to be associated with it anymore. And I've been looked down upon because I have said no to people's sexual advances. And I haven't actually bragged about it. I haven't said, oh, this person wanted to have sex with me and that person wanted to have sex with me. I'm just like, get away. Because when somebody says to me, you know, particularly if they were a friend, that they want to have sex with me then, and they're in a relationship in particular, and probably the person they're in a relationship with is my friend, you know, as well, what I hear is, I'm desperate, I'm not well, and I'm in an extreme stress response. That's what I hear, okay? And so if you were actually to go up to somebody and say that, please have sex with me, I'm desperate, I'm in a stress response, I'm in an extreme stress response, and I'm not well. Is that going to make you want to have sex with them? No. But the thing is that that's what I see, because I'm an expert in human behavior. So I understand the feed response, and it is essentially the fornication response. They're the same, really. You know, we're feeding, consuming porn, masturbation, sex, just feeling oversexed and in a sexualized sort of state, and constantly getting turned on about every little tiny thing. And you know, I'm just not into it. Okay, I'm seriously not into it. So to me, eros isn't really love. Okay, that's why it's not called love. It's called eros. Okay, then there's one for friends. I can't remember what that is. Then there is kind of the ultimate love. Okay, which for me, this is what I mean. We've got fear on this end of the spectrum, and we've got love on this end of the spectrum, and then there's a pole in between, and it's a spectrum. Okay, and so there are varying degrees of the intensity of both of those. Okay, and for me, God is the ultimate love. Okay, so God is ultimate love, right? And there's no fear with God. Okay, God is accepting of everything, understands everything, is completely benevolent. So, you know, I've had friends who've sort of said, you know, oh, well, I can't believe in a malevolent God, you know, one that makes people suffer. I said, well, I actually don't believe that God makes people suffer. I just believe in karma, and I believe that people resonate frequencies that attract, unfortunately, uncomfortable situations to themselves because of the nature of the way that we have evolved. Okay, and this is where you can go into, you know, kind of people in Africa and stuff like that. It isn't their fault. Okay, and you know, if people are still in, you know, beautiful earth-centered tribes, then they probably aren't experiencing these things such as famine. Okay, but unfortunately, the people who are experiencing famine, in inverted commas, are the people who have been destroyed by things like oats, okay, and vaccines. Okay, so because people like Bill Gates, Bill Gates got involved, okay, and they put them then into an addiction cycle. So then it isn't their fault. Okay, this isn't about fault, it's about frequencies. Okay, once they give away their power to the man, okay, and they start to put these degenerating substances into their body, instead of just saying, hey, go away, we're happy in our tribe, okay, we don't need water, you know, we've come to live in a state where we're more or less breatharian. Okay, we can try, you know, hey, why don't you try, we can carry 20 kilos on our heads and ride a bike at the same time with a friend on the handlebars. Why don't you try that, Baal? No, they can't do it, and he won't do it. Okay, so but the thing is that now they are in a resonant frequency where they are then attracting, because they've become dependent and they've become desperate. Okay, so that it's very unfortunate. But then so is all tragedies. You know, all tragedies are terribly, terribly unfortunate. And it's the way that we have developed, it's the way that we have come to be, is in these states of tragedy. Okay, life is tragic, and we're realizing it doesn't need to be. We need to flush out the 1%. Okay, it's a cancer. It's in a deep, deep addiction of greed where they just can't be satiated at all. And it goes deep and it goes really fucking dark. Okay. And we need to begin to birth a beautiful frequency. And we do that by going back to nature. It's the only way, and putting only what comes as a direct source from nature. So the only thing you need to be drinking is water. Okay. Maybe a morning sort of natural drink as well. It could be coffee. Okay. But if you experience something like, kind of hypertension or any level of anxiety, alcohol, alcohol definitely doesn't do me any favors, but coffee doesn't really do me any favors at all. Decaf is kind of okay. I can just about get away with that. But then if there's any essence, any hint of adrenaline in, and I'm around it, okay, it just starts to get me kind of hyped up. And so I actually disagree with Dr. Berg on that one. Okay, I just don't think in the state that we're in that coffee is anyone's friend, really, unless it's decaf. Okay, so there isn't a potential for that. So, but that then got me thinking a bit more about kind of God's love, and sort of under God's love then we have the mother's love. Okay, and there's mother's love, and trust me, I've fucking been there. Okay, I have been there, and I have been on the goddamn floor with it. Okay, and I have allowed myself to go there because I've known there's no way I can live with this level of fear in my body. There's no way. I cannot live with it. I have to purge it. I have to get it out. Okay, because it was my mother's anxiety. Okay, that she projected onto me, but she lived with it, and her teeth were very rotten, and she didn't even express, she didn't even talk about her fear, kind of thing. She just stayed up all night. She couldn't sleep, and she just would read, waiting for us to come home whatever time in the morning. Sometimes she'd be asleep on the sofa and we'd kind of creep in and try and pretend that we'd come in a bit earlier. But this is my point. Okay, so I was thinking about a mother's love, and at first I thought, no, a mother's love, that isn't fear, because yes, don't get me wrong, when I say love is ease, it's not disease. That doesn't mean there's no such thing as tough love. Okay, that's a mother's love, and it can be really fucking harsh. Okay, it can cut you down. I remember a friend saying to me, "You're dangerous." And I know now why. Okay, I'm not physically dangerous. I mean, I've never hurt anyone, but because I understand language, and because I understand, humanity and human condition and human behavior, I can out a person like that. Okay, which is why I keep saying to people, you will notice, won't you, that every single time I talk about people and human behavior, you don't resonate with it. Because I'm not talking about you, okay? So I'm not just hammering down hard on anyone in particular. I'm talking about the nuances of human behavior, okay? And so sometimes it's like, phew, well, that's not me. And other times it's like, oh my God, is she talking about me? No, I'm not, okay? I'm really, really not. And everyone I know is going to be thinking that on some level. And I said to my friend, this is what I keep meaning to say to you guys. I had to say to my friend 10 years ago, I am going to have to out everybody I know. Okay, it doesn't give me any pleasure to do that. It really, really doesn't. And so I've held back because I don't want to do it. But now it's just gotten to the point where when I then see people sort of agreeing with, the people at the top, the 1%, just went too far. Okay, they seriously went too far, and so now I want to say something. I need to speak. I need to be heard. Okay, they're still stopping that, but so I get there's tough love, and it can cut you down. Okay, but a mother's love is sometimes is fearful. She is scared. Okay, and she is terrified. And, so sometimes, yes, when you are a mother or a parent, there is the potential for fear in love. But otherwise, I am going to stick with my original belief that God and God's love is ease. And that's why I say the first step is just relax.